We are back inside City Hall with our panel of charter school leaders. The principal of the Amber Charter School, Vasthi Acosta, executive director of Urban Dove Charter School, Nanda, and CEO of the Northeast Charter Schools Network, Rosenkrans. And folks, tell me what you think of the current state of the conversation around education reform. For some people, you know, it's reform is a dirty word, or they think that it's masking some other kind of an agenda. For others, you know, reform is what we need more of. But so often it ends up being a shouting match. As the people who are on the ground doing this stuff, what's the future of reform in 2015?
Well, I'll start. I think if you look statewide and you start here in New York City and then just go up the thruway, you see as we have districts and cities where finding a great school is way too hard for parents. And there are a lot of different ways we can improve those opportunities for parents, but charters can be a part of that solution. But we can't do it without the right resources and conditions for charters to grow and meet that demand. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we're really have a laser-like focus on going into next year is facilities funding. Schools like the two before you here today don't have access to facilities funding, and to me that's an issue about equal treatment under the law, where charter students are the only public school students in the state that don't have access to funding for facilities. Mm-hmm. Our lawsuit brings light to this, but there's also a problem that's very real here in New York City. 40% of the schools roughly are not co-located and are in private space and have to take literally millions of dollars, if you add it all up every year, in operational dollars meant for kids and classrooms, and have just to pay the rent.
Well, here again, isn't that, I mean, my sense of it was always that was intentional, that, you know, that people who didn't want charters sort of approved in the first place in the late 90s wanted to basically sort of put something in that would say, well, you want to fight, you can fight, but you can do it with one hand tied behind your back. Was that what actually happened?
Yeah, I think what's happened that's maybe made that conversation a little bit different, at least on the ground, maybe not so much from a political standpoint, is that with the law that was passed last year, where we said, okay, there are some schools that are going to get facility funding, we seem to have moved beyond that. Mm-hmm. The question of should schools get it seems to have been answered. Mm-hmm. Yes, they should. So now we seem to be in this sort of gray zone of, well, some schools can get it if you fit these criteria, but other schools can. Like for ours, for example, we were offered a co-location when we first opened. It was not adequate to our needs, so we turned it down and we went into a private facility. So we're in this gray area of not quite fitting into this law. So if the law was still nobody gets facilities funding, this was part of the deal, you want to open a charter school, fine. I think that's a conversation that we could have. But once you open the door and you say, actually, no, you're right, charter schools do deserve facility funding, now, to me, everybody needs to get facility funding, and we can't sort of pick and choose which charter schools do it, because that's tough.
And so the new charter schools that haven't proven themselves, that haven't shown effectiveness, I'm glad they're getting it, because it's definitely
they get
needed.
Facilities funding, and you don't.
Right. And so I've been around 15 years. We own our own building. There was no option when we opened the doors, and I have to pay for cleaning service, Con Ed, mortgage, pest control, security, custodian. So all of that comes out of my budget. And yet, I have a proven record. Interesting, interesting. What do you folks make of the Common Core curriculum? Has it been helpful? Has it been disruptive as far as you having to run your curriculum? I have two things. One, I wanted to go back to your education reform question, and that is that I think in America we have to get away from this one-size-fits-all when it comes to education. The reality is that's not the case, and we all know it, and every parent knows it, that each of their children is different and probably needs a different approach on how to learn. And so what we really need to do is give parents a choice. This is the school that's going to do best by your child because you have this type of a learner. And I think that's where we need to go, and we have to get away from the one-size-fits-all. As to the Common Core, I think it's great. I think finally we have a standard that is hopefully going to be national, and we're all reaching the same, aiming towards the same goal. I mean, I remember my children would transfer from New York and go to Louisiana, and they were stars, where in New York they weren't stars, but in Louisiana they were stars. But if they went to Massachusetts, they'd be struggling a little. Why? Because we had so many different standards all over the nation, and that wasn't fair to this children in Louisiana nor in Massachusetts. So I mean, it'll be standardized. Is it substantively something that you want your kids to have?
You know, for our kids, the conversation is a little bit different because, you know, as we talk about kids being different and needing different things, I think it's more the case in our school than it is anywhere else. The kids who come to us have already shown that they've got challenges that they cannot overcome in order to meet very basic, forget Common Core or anything else, very sort of basic educational goals and outcomes. So the Common Core for us, I don't want to say it doesn't affect us because it's part of the curriculum that we use, but we are so focused on getting our kids to a level that doesn't even really engage the Common Core as a necessity, that I think whatever everyone decides to do, we're still going to have our struggles with our students and we're going to have to focus on what they need. And I think to the point, you know, kids don't sort of choose our school, you know, we choose them, right? Right. They've done something to sort of end up with us. So we're always going to have a different kind of approach to whatever the standards are just because of the nature of our students.
Okay, that is going to be the last word. Thank you so much for giving us a little sneak preview into some of the things we're going to be talking about next year, and hope to see you all back here again real soon. Happy holidays. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now, and still ahead as we wrap up 2014, we'll check in with 4 top reporters to get their take on the first year of the de Blasio administration. Stay with us.